Good thing I'm not a part of these Monday shows anymore. some of these takes.
Oh, from New York, you are listening to Extra Time, driven by Continental. From my apartment in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, I'm Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, David Goss, Charlie Davies. The Leagues Cup shirt. I want to come to downtown Brooklyn right now, Dave.
I don't live in downtown Brooklyn.
Wherever it is. Yeah, what a downtown.
I don't live on J Street.
Brooklyn Heights, whatever you want to call it.
B Heights.
Yeah, I want to come there and I want to rip that off of you and take it for myself. I wish I had that league shirt.
I had to take a red eye to Salt Lake City for this shirt. I had to run to an airport. It was a whole thing to earn this shirt, baby.
It's a beautiful shirt. The pink, the Leagues Cup. Leagues Cup, I miss you. We barely knew ye. It'll be
back stronger.
I feel that. One day I will drop my Liga MX MLS combination league, and you better believe Leagues Cup is a big part of that. Big show for you today. A lot of games on Wednesday night. We will kind of make our way through them, decide what topics matter. Maybe is Jordan Morris an MVP, and decide which don't. But we'll still talk about them. Who's the worst team at MLS? It's a competition. We will find out who that is. Also, Dave, you spoke to Kelvin Jones. He's the new Columbus Crew SC Academy Director.
Awesome.
Give us the 15-second sell, and then we'll get into the show.
Just talking about from a coaching point of view, what's left to get more players at the level of a Gio Reyna and a Weston McKennie, and what Columbus is doing as a small market to build players that can compete. And we've seen from Aiden Morris, Sebastian Berhalter, and Keita. So it was awesome talking to him. We talked about access as well for coaches of different backgrounds, minorities, women, and just, in general, trying to get into coaching. So a lot's changed, but I think COVID hasn't thrown everything off. And there's a lot of excitement about what's been put in place over the last few years and where it's going.
I'm sold. We've been trying to get Kelvin for a couple of weeks now, so happy we got him on this show. We're going to talk Gonzalo Higuain, the biggest signings of the year. But first, I've been told that we need to ask for ratings and reviews. That's what podcasts and podcasters do, and we almost never do that. And so I have a little story for you guys and a request to our listeners out there, of which come from many backgrounds. I was in New Jersey. I was on a hike with my kid and my wife and some friends of ours. A hike is really not what we were on. We were on a nature walk where there were quote-unquote fairy houses dropped in random places, which are just dioramas that people decided to build and drop in the middle of the woods in Montclair, New Jersey.
Wiebe has to correct that, because then I went to Montclair and asked for a hike to go on.
Correct.
And then he had to send me pictures of fairy houses.
Yeah, it was more like a 15-minute walk with some cool fairy houses. Anyway, I was on this walk. I was talking to my wife, and somebody randomly goes, "Hey, Extra Time! Andrew Wiebe, what are you doing out here in New Jersey?" And it was a family decked out in Red Bulls gear. We had a nice chat. And I was talking to, I believe, the dad, and I assumed that he was the only Extra Time listener. I was like, surely other people don't waste their time listening to our podcast twice a week. All of a sudden, the mom jumps in with some hot takes on the Red Bulls, and then the grandma jumps in on some hot takes. I mean, it was like one of the moments. And then Mindy says, "Did you pay them to say this to impress my friends?" I said, "No, I did not." But now,
is it impressive?
I don't think so, realistically speaking. But now the call is out there. Dads, moms, grandmas, grandpas, sons, daughters, please rate us and review us, because I went and looked at our ratings and reviews and I was like, how did we drop to a 4.4? And there are a lot of recent 1 stars, and you might know why we have a lot of recent 1 stars. Here's just the header on some. No longer a soccer show, liberal garbage. This is not a political show. Stick to soccer, more soccer, less virtue signaling. Gotta say I don't agree with any of you, but the one that
their use of the First Amendment right, though.
I do. The one that I will agree with, 1 star from Alien Youth number 3 back in July, was incoherent gibberish. Fair. But if you can go give us a 5-star review and give us a nice write up, we will read the fun ones on the podcast. And if you really roast us, we'll definitely read those.
We have a phenomenal roast for the mailbag coming up.
Oh, perfect.
Like an all-time great.
We'll get there soon enough. Let's talk soccer. Gonzalo Higuain. Anders, producing Anders, wrote in the rundown, Gonzalo Higuain, quote, finally delivers what Miami paid for. Finally is an interesting word choice there, but he did bang in a free kick to win a game at Red Bull Arena for Inter Miami. It was a beautiful free kick. He had some other nice moments in this game. Mm-hmm. Did Gonzalo Higuain, Charlie, finally deliver? Or is this just the beginning of much, much more? Because at halftime of that DC game, his brother, Federico, was asked about that goal, and he said, "Oh, there's a lot more to come. Don't worry about that."
Yeah, 100%. He's just getting going. when you enter Miami gets a goal scorer like Higuain, he's going to produce. It's just about his fitness and his health. If he's good to go, he's going to deliver. And what I loved about his play was not only that goal, it was Pellegrini's goal. It was his movement. As the ball gets played out to the right wing, he takes a peek. He sees Pellegrini, so he's aware that the back post is free, and that's where Pellegrini is. So he makes the near post run to pull that defender away. And most strikers, when that ball is played in, you try and play the ball because as a striker, you want to take it down, turn, shoot. He allows it to run by him, knowing that Pellegrini's there for the tap in for the goal. So he's influencing the game in many more ways than just finishing. So that's what I love to see from a player of his status. And his brother's right. I think when he gets going, it's going to be scary.
And this was what he was always going to have to do because the chance creation isn't totally there yet with Miami. And now with Rodolfo Pizarro off with Mexico for a sizable amount of the future games, he's going to have to be the center of everything, not just finishing. And so Charlie's point, I think he's seeing that and he's stepping into that role. And I think he has the capability to do it in MLS. And it's bigger than just finishing with him. And I think he's shown over the first 3-4 games, his presence, his gravity, all those things that make them better.
And Matuidi's goal line saving tackle, right? Those are two players he brought in that immediately changed the outlook of a match that really got you 3 points. So you can expect Inter Miami to start climbing up the standings because once those two are adjusted, they understand how the team plays, the tendencies, then just the league, the quality of competition, how players move and play. I think this team is only going to get better as we see the season unfold.
Although one of them might have to play center back at some point. And right now it's all hands
Matuidi
on.
could do it. Matuidi could do it.
He probably could because it's all hands on deck back there.
LGP was suspended, I think, for this game. Yeah. I mean, he'll come back, but he'll get suspended again. I mean, that's the way it works with LGP. Higuain said after this that MLS has reminded him of Serie A, that there's the physicality aspect, and so there's parts of the game that he's used to. But you're right, Charlie. I always thought this would be what he would be for Inter Miami. Like, this is what he was for Juventus last year. He wasn't I'm like the light, I'm the goal scorer, I'm the one. He was the guy sort of playing that complementary role and popping up in good places, finishing when he was there. That's what he does. But really playing setup man a lot of the time for Dybala or for Ronaldo or for others. And it wasn't just the passing. It was his movement. It was his recognition of space. Like, all these things in the attacking half of the field that he just can do without having to think about are things that you pay millions of dollars for and produce in Major League Soccer. And again, I go back to Robbie Keane. I think Gonzalo Higuain is Robbie Keane on steroids, and he's going to get up to that level of production. But this was a huge goal for him. He's not yet in the best signings of the year. Maybe next year if he's killing it or if he gets into the playoffs and puts them on a run, he would be there. But I think there are guys we got to look at who have done it over the course of the entire crazy, messed up, wacky year that has been and give them that honor at this point as we see the European window close. Of course, MLS, I believe, still open till October 29th, though there are limitations, obviously, on who can come in and out. Who is the best signing of 2020 for you guys? I wrote the column. I have my own opinion. I will save it till the end. Charlie, who is the best signing of this year so far? I can throw out some names if you need them.
No, these are the names, and I don't think there's anyone else. It's Lucas Del Rayon for the Columbus Crew. You also have to look at the standings, his influence. He's really changed the way Columbus Crew can play. Allows Jossie Zares to have a little bit more freedom. You throw in Nagby, and this midfield is really complete. It's Paulo Piatti of TFC, another player who's come in and has made a massive difference because he's another outlet. He's a player who can beat players on the dribble. He can score from distance. Complimentary player for Piatti, gives them another option. So he's been a good signing, but not at the level of Lucas Del Rayon. And then Alan Polito for SKC. When he's fit, I mean, he completely changes the game. He changes the way SKC can play. He's a goal scorer, but he's also a player who can control the game from a striker position, which is rare. It's a rare occasion when someone can come in, slow the tempo down, dictate the way you play. So, with all that being said, João Paulo, I guess, has a slight.
Don't say it. Just no. Don't do it just for producer Anders.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. I did that for producer Anders. Okay, I'm gonna go with Del Rayon. Is the right now probably the best signing of the year.
Do you have any concerns about the injuries? This is now 2 layoffs for him, And in combination, I would argue that he and Nagbe, the most influential, important signings, because I'm counting trades in signings as well. It's basically it's a transfer within Major League Soccer, essentially. Yeah. Does it worry you at all? Does it change?
We were given before.
Well, now it is. So
okay, Goss, he switches the rules as
we go. Yeah, for sure. I forgot.
Okay. Yeah,
I didn't know I had VIR here to check me, right? Okay. Are you concerned about that? Because they lost to Montreal. It's not been as good as it was, and he's hurt and he's out for a while.
But they lost to Montreal. Nagbe was not playing. Right? Nagbe changes the way Columbus Crew plays because of his ability to get out of tough situations. You can play to him. He's going to break pressure. He controls the tempo. He's good on the dribble. And because he draws so many players out of position, you're freeing Lucas Zelarayan. You're taking attention away from Jossie Zardes, who plays off the defender's shoulders and makes runs into spaces. So it's a combination of losing Nagbe and Zelarayan. So when they come back into the fold, I have no doubt this Columbus Crew team is going to compete for an MLS Cup.
Did Charlie move and buy a dog?
I know. It's upgrades across the board.
Yeah. I've always had a dog.
He just hasn't been barky.
Had a dog?
Yeah.
What's its name?
I did not know you had a dog.
Nala.
What?
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm blown right now.
Whoa.
You got a bigger house and now the dog's louder?
She's a little Maltese.
Nice.
We got her in DC, and she's barking because she's outside my office and wants to come in.
All right. So I took this a little differently. Charlie hit the right names, and they're all the biggest signings. But in terms of best signing, now Charlie can leave because they don't have to hear me disagree with him.
Yeah, he's got to go get his dog.
He's got to go get Nala. I think getting a cheap signing or signing in the right position or doing things when you're a little cap-tied goes in the conversation for best signings.
Agreed.
So Zelarayan was at the top of the list. The other 3 or 4 that I wanted to mention was Antonio Carlos, because that was the position of need. Do you want to do the full Lion King?
Yeah, do the full Lion King for the
Simba.
YouTube version here. By the way, you can watch and listen to us on YouTube, which we never say either. So rate and review and YouTube and all the other promotional aspects. Get that dog in the frame, Charlie. I had Antonio Carlos under my best TAM signings. I also had Pedro Gallese for
so did I.
Orlando
Well, I
City.
had a list, but
sorry. Continue.
There you go. No, I would say both of those, and I thought to get Carlos in a way in which they needed a center back this year, and that's what's restructured everything for them, I think, and made people more confident and comfortable in what they've done. I think Jose Martinez, a guy who was fairly under the radar and now is the best D-mid in the league.
I thought he was on TAM.
Don't put him in the conversation for best signing.
I was told when he signed that he was going to spend more time with Philly too than with Philly this year.
Okay, great.
He is the best D-mid in the league this year.
Yeah, he's better than Chara.
Okay, fine. And who else?
No, he's better than Chara.
Who else is he not better than?
You said best.
So he's the second best D-mid, unarguably?
He's on like 150K. I thought he was a TAM signing on fee. Not even that. He's not even TAM.
Great. Yeah. He's playing above the expectations, but he's not in the conversation of best defensive midfielder.
We'll do this in the mailbag, Charlie. All right. I see your
He already was in the conversation, Charlie, and Monday it was decided that he is. So
well, good thing I'm not a part of these Monday shows anymore. some of these takes. Oh my God!
Is there something you'd like to go off on, Charlie?
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it at that.
First it's the dog. Now it's the take.
Charlie's
judgment.
a whole new person.
Yeah,
he doesn't like the Monday shows anymore.
You're blowing this whole segment to pieces, Charlie. All right, continue.
The last one I'm going to add, and this is going to go in a weird direction, but it has to be said. Jose Aja for Minnesota. They lost the defender of the year at center back, who was the entire defense for them last year, and they lost the goalkeeper of the year, which I have less value in. And Jose Aja, who they signed for nothing as a retread MLS guy, has been one of the biggest parts of the fact that they are one of the top 4 teams in the Western Conference, and he's been their starter at center back and their rock.
I'm kind of a doubter on that one, but I will grant you that was like a classic MLS recycle move, that when it was made, you're like, this isn't going to work. He was bad in Vancouver, and he has been, if not spectacular, okay, certainly not spectacular, solid enough to keep them at least in the playoff hunt. Now, I'm going to put this out there. Here's my best signing of the year. It's Walker Zimmerman. It's Walker Zimmerman for Nashville SC. They paid a lot of money for him, but it goes straight into that same sort of like legacy of the Eichel Parra trade for Minnesota United. We have CM hitting us up in the mailbag saying, is Nashville SC the most boring team in MLS history? Maybe. Possibly. 4 scoreless draws this year, 2 straight scoreless draws, 1 midweek against Minnesota. But they actually, I think, unbeknownst to them or not, handled the pandemic as an expansion team that knew they had some spending limits in the perfect way. They go out and build a foundation that transfers, which is defensive solidity, which is a center back, best 11 possible defender of the year in his prime, locked in long term. They don't spend a ton of money on TAM players that are hit or miss. They don't have, I'm already spacing on the center, Demidov. They didn't go sign a Demidov. And so now they can make decisions. Like even Cadiz is on loan, so they could move away from him if that doesn't work out. Now they still got to find a way to score goals. But with Walker Zimmerman, this team is a playoff team. And for Nashville SC in their first year to have that sort of floor established, like we're not going to go below this. I mean, that's an incredible signing, and one I never would have. Yes, there's a lot of hand motions going on.
Where's Dax? When you
Dax is here too. I mean, that's a big part of Walker Zimmerman being as good as he is, obviously. Yes. And I think Godoy has been, sort of like an aha signing where it was like he had more quality, but we didn't know where he was in his career.
Gave up like $600K for Godoy.
Yeah, but now it's
more than eyes.
Sure. But how many flop TAM midfielders are out there? Like I'm trying to find good TAM signings. If you go through,
he wasn't a TAM signing because he was already in MLS.
I agree, but they had to give up essentially the resources that they would have used on a TAM signing. The allocation money to buy it down.
One that takes it above Dax is that he's younger and they extended him.
Yes.
So they locked it in long term. So if you want to talk performance this year, you could arguably put them in the same category. But the Zimmerman part, to Weeby's point, is that's your foundation now.
Yeah, you're now building around that. You're building around that. That's everything to you. That's like, that's your North Star to steal something from your Minnesota. Yet again. Yeah. Is he the defender of the year right now? I know we talked about Jonathan Mensah, but it seems like maybe Zimmerman has pushed his way into this conversation.
I think he's done a good job of putting his name into the conversation, and he's been I think largely impactful for Nashville. Really a commanding presence, great in the air, wins his aerial duels, strong. But I think Jonathan Mensah is the clear runaway with defensive MVP, defensive player of the year.
Okay.
Is Mark McKenzie on the short list?
Yeah,
I think he would definitely be in the short list. Yeah, we did the Ozzy
is the list, but then they're on the short list behind.
That's the all tuck defender of the year list. It's a slightly just a barely a different list. Let us know what you think. Defender of the year. We did the Ozzy Alonso D mid, and we're going to talk more Continental Awards in the mailbag. 4120660MLS. Extra time at MLSsoccer.com if email is more your style. Seattle Sounders win midweek against RSL. Jordan Morris gets a goal before he even scored that goal. Toodle Ramen was all up in the mentions because we've basically been crowning Alejandro Pozuelo the MVP on this show. Certainly, I've been beating that drum. And he said, guys, here's the full argument on why Jordan Morris is actually the MVP in Major League Soccer so far. And we had kind of dismissed Jordan Morris as being part of a triumvirate, maybe even a, four horsemen sort of situation with Raul Ruiz, of course, and then Nico Lodero, who I think is always the MVP of that team. And then João Paulo, who Producing Anders will not stop yammering on about constantly, no matter what, whether it's in the private chat as we do the show or otherwise. Here's Toodle Ramen's argument. He says he has the best raw numbers. Again, this was before Wednesday night when Jordan Morris scored a goal. 14 non-PK goals scored or assisted. That's top in the league. That's one more than Quintero and Pozuelo, who are at 13. He has the best goals plus assists in 90 average, no PKs of any regular starter. Pozuelo's not even in the top 10 on that one. Toodle says he has the best underlying numbers. He's number one in expected goal plus expected assists in 90 minutes at 0.81. That's pretty good. Pozuelo's 0.69, again, before Wednesday. He's number one in goals above replacement. He's number one in all these categories, league stats, et cetera, et cetera. He's number one on his own team. So he is, Toodle Ramen says, the MVP of the Sounders and of the league on the clearly the best team. Is Jordan Morris a realistic option for voters? Do you think at the end of the year that people will look at this race, if it kind of continues on its same trajectory, which is both players being extremely productive and both of their teams, Sounders and Toronto, being basically the class of the league, does Jordan Morris have a chance? Could we see Jordan Morris win the Landon Donovan MLS MVP award?
He will get votes. He will not win. He will get votes because of his production and because Seattle will be the best team in the West. And you'll look at it and say, well, who's going to earn it from this team? Who's going to be in the conversation? And it's going to be him. He will not win because of all the same reasons Toodle put at the end. He's not a DP. So his life is easier than Pozuelo. Pozuelo's playing on a field without Josie and without Michael Bradley, and he's keeping his team's performance here. And while Jordan Morris has played phenomenally, when Jordan Morris goes running down the middle of the field, there's a reason center backs have to follow Raul Ruiz Diaz. There's a reason Nico Lodero's pulling numbers away. All of that quality makes his life easier. That doesn't take away from the fact that he's performing at an insane level and he's gotten better as a player and he deserves to be in the conversation, but it takes away from the fact that he won't win the award.
Yeah, he won't win the award, but he has been, a pleasure to watch this year with his impact, changing the way he plays, not being so predictable, just being north-south. He's coming inside, he's combining his hold-up play, a lot of intangibles that are needed when you look at the U.S. men's national team, right? So I think he's really improved as a player, and that's why I've said his next step now is to go to Europe, where he's pushed every single day to try and get the most out of him. That's where I would like to see him now. That I know that for some players that's maybe not in your future, you don't feel comfortable being away from home, but I would love to see him go out there and get tested. So I'm with Goss that Pozuelo is, really the MVP at the moment because of TFC's trajectory, being without Josie, being without Michael Bradley, dealing with, some of those players being off the pitch, but you being literally the center of attention and getting the best out of everybody, getting the best out of Ayo Akinola, getting the best out of Paulo Piatti, really being the centerpiece on that TFC team. So
on a team, by the way, that can't go home and has played the three other best teams in the league, while Seattle's out here playing whoever they want, who's outside the playoffs week after week. He beat Columbus, he beat Philly, and he beat, I can't remember. Oh, they didn't play Orlando. So he beat those two. That's still pretty good.
And the Revs, because he assisted on Akinola's goal. So
yeah. And the one thing I'd add on Jordan and everything Charlie said is his finishing as well. Because when you watch yesterday, it got called back, his first goal in the second minute. But it's a calm, relaxed, left-footed finish that he places past the goalkeeper. And then the goal he scores is the crash in the box, one-touch finish. They're two completely different goals. And he cleanly finishes both of them. And I think it just shows the development in who he's become as a soccer player.
Did we do the Paul from Houston email? Did you guys do it when I was gone on vacation upstate? Did you do said last show, Charlie stated if Jordan Morris wants to be the best player he can possibly be, he has to go to Europe. Does that same logic hold true for Landon Donovan? And therefore Chuck didn't think that LD was the best he could be? We did that?
We did do this email.
Well, then I'll kindly walk away. Look, I agree with you guys. I've been Team Pozuelo. I've been Team Pozuelo because I think if you look at Morris and Pozuelo, they're being asked to do two very different things. And Pozuelo's being asked to basically run the entire show and be the fulcrum of everything that they do in the attacking half of the field. If you just go look, speaking of underlying numbers, if you go look at touches, productive touches, chance-creating touches, pass before the pass touches, in and around the 18, like let's say just in the final third, it's Pozuelo, and then it's the next person, like at 60% of what he's doing. It's nowhere close. He is everything in the final third for Toronto FC, and Toronto FC's level is higher than I would have thought it could be without Josie being consistent, with them going back and forth, as you said, with them just like living out of suitcases and being in the most uncomfortable possible situation as they can be with COVID. Jordan Morris, meanwhile, I think is asked to be more complimentary. Like, he can dominate because he's in all these positions where he's in either 1v1 situations or he has the perfect player to play him that ball over the top, or the perfect pass, cut back coming across the field, or just Will Bruin whiffing at the near post. But Jordan Morris has been incredible this year. I don't have an opinion on the Europe thing, Charlie. Would I watch every one of those games? Sure I would. We'd watch all of them, and we will get to that more in the mailbag because we have somebody roasting us about it.
I'm also going to add, if Columbus Crew do finish atop the league in the Supporters Shield, and they do still have the lowest goals against average, Jonathan Mensah should be the MVP. I stand by that.
Okay.
Stand in solidity with my defensive brothers.
I like that take. All right. NYCFC. We kind of haven't talked about them hardly at all. I'm going to be honest. We've really ignored what's been going on with New York City, but they've got 3 straight wins. They got another one against DC. I mean, you can chalk that up however you want right now. But the big news for NYCFC really is one of their DPs is gone. Alexandru Mitrita is on his way to Saudi Arabia on loan through 2022. There are some extenuating circumstances here. His wife is pregnant. I don't believe that he could see her or be with her, and I completely get that. You need to be around your wife. If you've got a baby on the way, you need to be there to support her. So I would guess that she's going to be able to be with him in Saudi Arabia. I would guess he's also getting the bag. here, which that's important. I understand
He maybe gets
that.
a briefcase on fire.
Oh,
That's what we've heard in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
Obviously, the PT experience.
I would prefer my briefcases full of cash to not be on fire, but personal preference.
But
on
you'd
that
rather
one.
briefcase on fire full of cash than no briefcase at all.
That's fair. That's fair.
So-
I'll find a way to put it out.
Ooh,
Charlie,
Charlie's just
I don't know.
leaving now.
Apparently, Charlie has to walk the dog. I don't know what's going on here. What do you think about this Mitrita move, Dave? Because now it's him. Maxi Morales is hurt. Eber is
hurt.
out.
Yeah.
It's tough. Not good timing.
So it's interesting. You say we haven't talked about NYCFC, right? Now their last 4 wins: 2 against Cincinnati, 1 against DC, and 1 on the road at Miami. So not the best competition ever. Lost to TFC in the middle of that. So I think that's part of it. And I also think Maxi Morales is out hurt, and you've sold your DP in Mitrita to Saudi Arabia, which I don't think changes the perception of your club. This isn't Philly selling Brandon Aronson because this is the future. And it feels like we're treating them the same way they're treating themselves, right? If you're the middle of a playoff race, you've already lost your number 10. You've already lost your center forward. So you've moved Mitrita into those roles. You think he's playing well there. And then you just go off and sell him. That's kind of how NYCFC sees themselves, it feels like. I don't know what the purpose is, what the end goal is. Do they want to win an MLS Cup? Do they want to produce players? Do they want to bring players from Europe at young ages, produce them and sell them on? I don't think there's a clear identity to what NYCFC is, and I think that's how fans observe them, and I think that's how we've observed them. And so you look at them over the last few weeks, yeah, it's better. It's not been fun. It's not been Dome at his peak. It's not been Vieira at his peak, and I think Ronnie Deila definitely deserves a mulligan on the year, and I think we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But this type of move continues to be the NYCFC thing, which is what is the purpose of this club? And I think that makes it hard to really analyze where they're going and what they've done well.
I think that's fair. I mean, there are personal extenuating circumstances here for
100%.
them, but what is the driving light for them? What is the recruitment policy around? What are their goals based around? The hiring process when it comes to managers, there's been ins and outs. Like, why was Dome just like, I can't do this anymore, I gotta leave?
And let's take, for example, PT Martinez. He was a failed signing for Atlanta, and they had an opportunity to get out of him. Has Mitrita been a failed signing? Are they making money that they're going to reinvest into the club off the sale? So it's hard to analyze what's happening.
I don't think they used him right.
Fair.
I don't think they put him in a position to succeed. He can't. Out of the last 3 games, he had 4 goals. He scored back-to-back braces before this last match. How do you not figure he could be a big part of the team, being in the center of the pitch? Like Ronnie Deila just didn't value him at the end of the day. He didn't like him for whatever reason, didn't play him, didn't use him the right way. And therefore you never got the best out of Mitrita. He's a quality player. When he's fit and engaged in the team, he has a lot to offer. He can go right, he can go left, he can shoot from distance, combine, good touches, awareness, a lot of those things that don't come easy in this league. He was, could have been a really quality signing, and I don't think that we saw the best of him.
Is Jesus Medina another guy in this sort of boat? A guy that was hyped, came in, pretty good transfer fee. You were thinking, okay, maybe they're going to be among the teams that do the South American young player flip, and maybe it's part of City Football Group and what they're up to. I mean, now I would guess that a lot of pressure would fall on him, or at least an expectation that he would have to produce for them to get moving forward. I'm not exactly sure. I think we're kind of scuffling with them. So if NYCFC fans, if you're listening, if you have an idea.
And I would say you have
know.
to give credit to the roster build in general, right? Because they haven't, maybe we don't know or have ideas of what they've hit on the big ones, but they've been able to bring in a Tajiri Shoddy, Tinnerholm, guys like that who keep them at a high level. But in the end, what is the final goal? How is this team trying to be built? And I agree with you. With Medina, it looked like, okay, the Pirlo Lampard thing wasn't who we are. This is what we're going to do now. And Medina didn't hit himself, and there's sometimes nothing you can do about that. But then the next signing is Eber from Croatia, and then you've got Mitrita and Maxi, and it's all over the map. And if that's fine, if the end goal is to just win MLS Cup, but then why are you selling Mitrita now, going into a playoff run without Maxi, when, as Charlie said, he has been the center of your attack?
Yeah, I mean, it's a question mark. The personal side really comes into it, and maybe their hand was forced in that sense. But you do wonder with the outlay, because it was one of the record transfers in Major League Soccer incoming. Like, what was it, like $10, $11 million, right?
I think, I think it was the sixth or seventh biggest.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big outlay of money. So this is certainly not the way they wanted it to end. But we do hope that Alexandru Mitrita and his wife are in a better place as well, because that personal stuff, as we all know, in this year, any year, it matters. Dave, I'm going to give you an open floor on Jeremy Ebobisse here, because he slapped up the Galaxy. The Galaxy just getting slapped up regularly, sitting at the bottom of the Western Conference. We'll talk about them with the worst team in MLS combo, but just get into it. Jeremy Ebobisse. Big night for the young man. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good one. So just so you know, Jeremy Ebobisse has taken 0 free kicks in his MLS career. Standing over this one, I think all of the announcers also said, like, oh, you know that this is Diego Valeri. And then he rips one from the top of the box into the top left corner, straight past David Bingham's head, because you don't even see it, David Bingham. And Jabo once again. Then he scores again in the second half. They win 6-3. I think with Jeremy Ebobisse, last week we had Greg Berhalter on, and we talked about forward depth, and he listed off his list. And that doesn't mean that that's in, ink, and that doesn't mean that he didn't just forget his name, but he didn't mention Jeremy Ebobisse. He did mention Mason Toye. I don't know how Charlie related that was, but it did happen. And so Jeremy Ebobisse, I think, has played at a high level. He's done it at multiple positions, center forward and again out wide yesterday. Now he's doing it without Sebastian Blanco and keeping his team up at the top of the Western Conference. Yesterday was his 72nd consecutive appearance. In all competitions, he broke Darlington Nagbe's record for Timbers consecutive appearances. So he's been consistent. He works on both sides of the ball. He's gotten better. He's dangerous as a center forward, and now he can take free kicks. So I think he has to be in the conversation for national team at the center forward pool, especially if we end up in a situation where you have people that can only come from this side of the ocean and that side of the ocean in separate camps. He's definitely in that MLS pool. And he has to be talked about, I think, not at Jordan Morris's level, but in that conversation of most improved players and players who have really changed their game. And I love Jeremy Ebobisse. I always have since the day he came in MLS. So I'm just glad to see him doing this thing.
Well, that's why I hope he can play in the Olympics. And I hope they qualify, because that'll be a great place for him to measure his quality against some of the world's best in his position, and as well as the defenders in the world. So it will be a good measuring stick for Jeremy Ebobisse. And for me, he has made all those improvements. He's really starting to develop and be more well-rounded and understand the nuances of the position. And we've seen him be effective on the wing. We've seen him be effective in the middle. And I think to be the best striker you can possibly be in the middle of the pitch, you have to understand how to make the space, be an area where you can really get on the end of things and beat people on the dribble 1v1 and be able to make great runs from the outside in and inside out. And so I think for him, he's really understood how to create space for others.
I agree with all of this. Big fan of Jeremy Ebobisse. Big fan of the free kick blast and just saying, hey, I got the leg to put it straight past your noggin. Like, you can see this ball coming. The wall is not blocking you. Smack. It was a cool moment. It was a big win for the Timbers, and we're not gonna belabor the Galaxy. Matt Doyle went out and wrote a whole article about Chicharito and the numbers behind it. Not gonna do that, though. I will mention that my guy Ethan Zubak has more goals in less minutes this year than Chicharito. 2 goals in 577. Javier's got 1 in 598. Not great.
Julian Araujo with his first career.
Dude, that was a good hit. I was here for that. I was here for that. Let's talk about something that our guy producer Phil in Queens, he is disavowing Utica these days, asked us. He said, "Do any coaches get the mulligan treatment because of waves furiously in the air? All of this year, are we giving mulligans to coaches right now or not?"
Yeah, I think so.
Would you give one to Guillermo Barros-Schelotto?
I would not.
Explain that dichotomy there.
I think with the players at his disposal, you would imagine that he could figure out a style of play and a way that they're an identity, not just a Christian Pavone show where you expect him to do everything 1v1 and create in the attacking half. Jonathan Dos Santos. Now he's a player that is up for best defensive midfielder in this league. when you want to throw that into the pot.
I think playing games is part of the.
Yeah, but
you could talk about
field,
quality. Yeah. You could talk about that, but production in 2020, he has not been better than Jose Martinez. He hasn't even played.
When he has.
All right, go back. Let me take you back then. How about this? Why would you give coaches mulligans in this year? Either of you feel free to answer.
Okay. So, for instance, Montreal Impact, Thierry Henry, I'd give him a mulligan.
Yeah.
That team needs so many improvements, so many upgrades, so many roster moves, and you're just trying to make the most of your situation. CONCACAF Champions League, they were doing well in the beginning of the year, considering that they didn't really have that much, but they were getting results, and then that throws a wrench into your plans because you're derailed as far as the progress that you've made. That competition's done, the whole stoppage. Then you're trying to work on it. You have all these different rules in place because you're in Canada, so you have to, there's just a lot that goes into it. And I think he's just trying to make the most of this year, trying to figure out who he wants to keep for next year, who he wants to move on from. And Bojan has really, over the last 3 or 4 matches, started to perform, starting to show me something. And he hadn't done that since he's been in a Montreal Impact jersey. So if he can get the most out of Bojan heading into next year, so you have an understanding of where you want to play him and you can build around him because that he can be a centerpiece, I think Thierry Henry definitely deserves a mulligan for this year.
I agree with you. I would throw basically all the new coaches in and just say you had a plan. This is how we're going to build through preseason. This is how we're going to develop. And Henry was the exact example of that. It started defensive, and they were clean defensively in CCL, and they were going to play 5 in the back and slowly start to build their ideas in possession. And then they didn't get to practice for 6 months and didn't get to play competitive games. So Tab Ramos goes on that list. I think Ronnie Dyla goes on that list. Who'd you say?
Rafa Vicky.
Yeah, I think Vicky, and I think Diego Alonso and Gary Smith. To Gary Smith's credit, he's got his team in the playoffs right now, but they've been hurt. I also extend that a little to Robin Fraser and Freddie Juarez, who did start coaching last year, but didn't get the time to implement their ideas. The ones who don't get a mulligans are the ones who have been around, and I think there was already frustration. Obviously, Ben Olsen's in his own category on this one, but I think
Hope's lost.
Schelotto, but I think Schelotto goes in that one as well, where he's already been in LA and there was already a level of frustration with the way the team played.
Yes.
And they haven't improved since then. And I guess Matias Almeida goes in there as well, just because you saw the flaws in what they wanted to do last year. And you still see those flaws this year.
Mark Dos Santos probably in that as well. But by the way, typical San Jose Earthquakes roller coaster lifestyle, baby. 3 straight wins. Let's go. They slapped down Vancouver. And so that made me decide that they are not among the 5 worst teams in MLS. So I went into the standings. Any team that has earned at least 1 point or less per game this year can be in the running. Who is the worst team in MLS, Charlie? Who gets that? Let's call it an honor.
Well, it's a match between DC United and Vancouver Whitecaps for bottom of the barrel. It's those two. And I think at the moment, DC takes the cake as the worst team in Major League Soccer because it seems to me that hope is gone. It is lost. They're just going out there to, receive a paycheck at this point because I'm left astonished with the amount of talent that they have on this roster. You have Julian Gressel. You had Edison Flores, who you played out of position, who you didn't even play a style that basically allowed him to flourish. You had Ola Kamara, who you brought back, and he's a proven goal scorer in this league. He touches the ball maybe 3 times, 4 times a match. You have Bill Hamid in goal, who's always been a standout in this league, one of the better goalkeepers.
Assad,
Birnbaum, and Briant. That was a reliable center back pairing.
Junior Moreno started in Copa America last year.
Yeah, it's been a disaster. It is a disaster from top to bottom. So I don't know when you start to make changes, whether it's now, do you wait till the end of the year? But I think for the fan base, for DC United, they deserve a lot more. They deserve a lot more for how dedicated they are, for what they've given to this club, what they've given to the area. It's not acceptable, and a lot of things have to change.
Vancouver's in the running here. Galaxy are in the running here.
I think Charlie made a spirited argument.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to beat that argument.
I don't think there's ways to rip that up.
If you want to make an argument, you know how to get at us. Please feel free to do so. Quickly, some shout-outs. Shout-out to Ayo Akinola, Toronto FC, young man. I think his 8th goal of the year. Bodying Andrew Farrell. Just bodying Andrew Farrell. Now, we went on IR, and I said that it was a foul. And I just want to say that I might have been... There was no pressure whatsoever, and that I made that choice on my own volition. So I said it was a foul. Because, look, he grabs a little, and he pushes, and I think Farrell has position, and also I wanted to troll Charlie.
Yeah.
Dave, what say you? You said it's a man's game.
Yeah, I say no foul. I think Farrell's off center because he's running to try and stay in front of Akinola, and then they both slow up for the ball, and there's contact, and Farrell goes down. I don't think that Ayo Akinola extends that arm, and I don't think that it's an illegal action. And then it's a pretty finish with the outside of the foot. Calm as you like.
It's very simple. They're both going for the ball, and Andrew Farrell starts in a deeper position, so he can essentially get to it first. But Ayo Akinola's, I think, rapid acceleration from step 1 to step 3 got him in a position to challenge with Andrew Farrell. And hand fighting, which they both did, is not a foul. Okay, that's 1. 2. Farrell is upright in an upright position, like he was going to make a touch. There was no intention, just run through and clear it out. And I've been in training with Andrew Farrell, where we've been in that position, 50-50 almost, where I have a little slight edge or a step on him, and he just clears me out. No questions asked. The ball's in the 50th seat in the bleacher, right? You're like, okay, well done. Even if it is a foul, whatever. You know you're coming in with attention hard. This was in a case where he thought, I got the edge, I have a step. Didn't really think that Ayo Akinola was that quick. He caught up to him, and then the full muscle, the power that went into the bump. And the bump was...
Yeah, the bump was good.
It was on the back end of the shoulder, but it's the shoulder. Mm-hmm. And Farrell's momentum, because he was upright, he takes the ball like between his legs and trips it and falls. It's the momentum that took him down from the bump. And then, like Goss said, it's on his right side. So you think, okay, what are you going to do here? You're going to try and dribble him. You're going to use your left foot. And he caught Matt Turner off guard because it was a quick shot with the outside of his right foot to bend it around him. And it's a classy finish, an understated finish. And after watching Ayo a number of times this year, he's really developed into something special. He has something different. And if I am in the U.S. men's national team, camp, I'm looking to bring him in because he offers something extremely different from a Gyasi Zardes, from a yes, he does. Extremely.
No, I know, but I'm just saying I'm here to fight for Canada.
Oh, stop it!
Give Canada some love, Ayo.
No, absolutely not. He offers something different than any other striker in the pool, and so therefore, you want Ayo Akinola to start getting reps with the U.S. men's national team because I'm excited when I watch him play. He's short to the ground, good speed, not world-class speed, but good speed, good acceleration, strength, and the intelligent runs, the timing of the runs. And when you're playing with a Pozuelo, that's only going to make you that much better to always be ready for those type of passes. And so I'm very high on strikers that have something different, and he's one of them.
It feels like a lot of the things Zardes does, but he's 10 years younger. He's already a little cleaner on the ball. And then he can come in and do some of the things that Josie's done well. He obviously needs to develop more, but to Charlie's point, there are a few players in the striker pool that do something well. He can do multiple of those things well, which we haven't had.
Yeah,
maybe like a complete player.
Yeah, maybe a blessing. I hate to say this because we always want guys to stay healthy, but maybe a blessing for Ayo and for the U.S. national team pool that Josie's been a little bit hurt this year, that he's gotten these opportunities. 9 goals, says producing Anders in the chat. In over 1,000 minutes, just over. So that's pretty good return.
He has 8 goals this year. He had 1 before this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like he's on form, but he's also a young guy you expect it to continue.
Yeah, and you expect maybe there's another couple jumps up that he can make. Shout out to the Union, big 3-0 winners. Jim Curtin says Ilsinho's the best attacking player he's ever coached. Ilsinho got a goal in this one. Brendan Aronson set up Ale Bedoya. It was a easy win for the Union. That's what they need to rack up. Shout out to Houston Dynamo as well. Texas Derby win, Dave.
Yeah, I was pumped about this. For Houston, 1, I thought they played really well. They've played well over the last few weeks. But 2, we've had a conversation about retreads and signings and this and that. And you've mentioned his name a couple times, but Ariel Lassiter creates the goal, obviously mistake off Thiago Santos, but the early read of the play to get it into Quintero's feet rather than to try and get to the end line and pull it back creates the goal. And he's been awesome for them at center forward and out wide. And I think it just goes to our idea of the expectations of a player's pathway. And he was at LA too, and the Galaxy really didn't know how to bridge a player from that level to the MLS level. And he didn't really get his opportunities, and the team was bad when he did. And he goes down to Costa Rica and works on his trade and gets opportunities and finishes. And coming back now, I thought he was just going to be a squad player. I thought this was just, we need numbers. And he has been a difference maker for this team. And he's going to be huge depending on what happens with Manotas. He's already filling in for Elise at times. And I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be around Houston for a while.
Yeah, I like it. I'm going to go shout out to Winston Reid of Sporting Kansas City. 1-0 win for Kansas City. Winston Reid has basically not been playing soccer essentially since like 2017-18. It's been a long, long winding road, and that's how he ended up in Kansas City. He hasn't scored a goal since the 2016-17 season. So you could see after he scored this goal, I'm watching it just WhatsApping with my brother, and I was like, man, Winston Reid really felt this one. So congratulations to Winston Reid for getting that moment. I know you've been waiting for that one for a long time.
Continuing a legacy of great MLS New Zealand center backs, Ryan Nelson at DC United, and MLS Cup starter, Andrew Boyens, the God.
Wow. Good reference. That's a good name drop.
MLS player. There he is.
We were going to go shout out to the Impact, but Charlie, I feel like you already did the Bojan shout out. You feel good about that?
Yeah, I do. And Lapalainen has also been good. I think when you look at wingers in this league, Lapalainen has also something different. He's very direct. He can score goals with both feet. I think when he's fit and healthy and confident, it's going to be really tough to deal with. So if he can get going and it can keep him long-term, and Boyan, those are two pieces that you can really build off of.
And maybe Mason Toy?
Maybe Mason Toy.
Possibly.
Before we get to this interview with Kelvin Jones, the Columbus Crew Academy Director that Dave did earlier today, let's do MLS Predict 6 presented by BetMGM. We got 6 games. You make your picks. You've got your side wagers as well. So 12 choices to make every single week as you try to figure out, I don't know, it's near impossible. I don't know how anybody does it. What will happen in Major League Soccer? Our game this week, I'm going to make the executive decision. LAFC Seattle, 7 p.m. Eastern, ESPN and DAZN in Canada. Who's our pick here? LAFC or Seattle? What do you got? LAFC are moving up?
I think for me, you have to say LAFC just because they didn't play midweek. So they've got a chance to get fresh coming to this game, although they do lose Brian Rodriguez to internationals. Seattle
and now Diego Rossi, by the way.
Yeah. So
Diego
Seattle are missing pieces, and they had to play midweek. So Will Bruin's the starter. You don't have as much depth in those spots. And I think for LAFC, you've seen Bradley Wright Phillips start to come on over the last few games. His movement alongside that Seattle back line leads to goals in my mind. So I think this is a game where, LAFC right now needs to win 4-3. This is one where they have that potential. So I'm picking LAFC.
I'm going LAFC.
Yeah, it's a decent pick because...
sorry, I'm going Seattle Sounders.
Oh, okay. Whoa. I was going to say, I can see LAFC because I felt like Seattle was a little bit heavy-legged on Wednesday. And they played a lot of their big guys. And so now they have to go and travel, I believe, to LA and go from there. So I think LA has the edge just in rest. But personnel-wise, it's clear. With Rossi gone and with Rodriguez gone, Seattle have the edge. So I'm going to pick Seattle. That's just...
And both defenses have been suspect. So whether it's Will Bruin, whether it's Rui Diaz obviously is lethal. But still, it's not like you're battling the league's best defense in LAFC. So I think when you have Ladero, when you have Jordan Morris, you still these pieces that can really hurt you. I just believe that Seattle Sounders, they have this belief right now that they're meant to win this year. I think that they are confident, and the defense is actually playing well. So I'm going to go with Seattle Sounders.
All right, I like it. Anders says this is why Charlie's his favorite host. So you're pandering to producing Anders. These Swedes, they just want all the praise in the world. All right, let's take a listen to this interview, Dave, you did with Kelvin Jones.
Get it right. Okay.
Yeah, well, see, oh wow, see, there it is. You pandering again. Let's take a listen. Kelvin Jones, Columbus Crew SC Academy Director.
Now it's time for our AT&T 5G call to the field, and what an exciting one. A chance for me to nerd out about youth development and the future of soccer in America with Columbus Crew SC Academy Director Kelvin Jones. First of all, congratulations, a new title for you. Second of all, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's still kind of weird getting used to that title, but no, excited to be here and appreciate you guys having me.
So let's go to your background a little bit. You played college at Wake Forest, went through the pro ranks a little bit, USL and MLS, and then worked as an academy director, I believe, outside of the MLS circles before joining Columbus as a youth coach. What's your soccer background? How did you get here?
Yeah, like you said, I was fortunate enough to go to Wake Forest, played there 4 years, and then after I graduated, played in the USL for 5 years, a couple seasons with the Charleston Battery, and then a few years with the Richmond Kickers back in Virginia. It's where I'm from, so they were always kind of a hometown team. Stopped playing in 2009, and like most soccer players when their career's over and you spent 20 some odd years playing the game, you're kind of wondering what you want to do with your life. So I slowly got into coaching youth clubs in my hometown area, and was fortunate enough to be offered an opportunity to become a director of coaching in a club about an hour and a half away from my hometown. Was there for 6 years. Worked with, when I got there, I was a U10 coach. When I finished, I was a U17, U18 coach, and worked with ages from top to bottom, boys and girls. So I've seen the whole spectrum. I've been around for a while, and most of my time has been spent back east in Virginia. So, and then I ended up here in 2017.
So you have a great idea or view to tell us about MLS's next, because you've worked both outside the MLS structure and now inside, at the time, the DA, of working with MLS academies. What does MLS next bring to the US and Canadian soccer youth scene, and what have you seen so far in the early start?
Yeah, it's to be honest with you, it's not much different in terms of the structure because it picks up where the DA left off. But what I think is unique about the structure of the league itself, it really wants to take and elicits the input from the non-MLS clubs as the formation of what this league looks like. There are several working committees, not only with just MLS clubs, but also non-MLS clubs that work behind the scenes just to make sure that the landscape works well, not only for the MLS clubs, but for all clubs in general. And it's tough to kind of branch out what the iteration of the league looks like now because of COVID and some of the ideas, the bigger overarching ideas of what this league will look like will obviously take some time because it's new, but also take some time because we're dealing with a new normal. But in the meantime, all the clubs in their local environments are adapting and communicating and moving forward in these unprecedented times, just to make sure that we are all still moving forward in the right direction.
And of course, COVID, as you said, unprecedented, throwing everything off. But a lot of plans, a lot of change has been happening in U.S. youth soccer, Canadian youth soccer, and coaching and development over the last few years before this, and we'll hopefully go on after it as well. You mentioned being a coaching director at your last academy. Where are we at in terms of the development of coaching in the United States? Because it feels like if you look back 20 years and you look at the issues youth soccer has, it wasn't high, and we fixed a lot of them with funding and, competition, but feels like coaching and tactics are the last real big step.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still would say that we've got a ways to go, but we're moving in the right direction. We were talking about this as a staff the other day. It's the access to the game itself, not only for kids that play, but also for coaches in the education. And to give that access for coaches along the way is really, really important. Whether we as a club are helping the local market or the education system is allowing those coaches that want to be in the system to get into the system. And I think sometimes the burden of cost doesn't allow those coaches that want to move up in the ranks to move up in the ranks. So that's when clubs like us that have the staff that can go out and outreach and educate the local community gives not only the kids a pathway to get to this market, but also the coaches. I think it's really, really important to show the coaches that just because you're at a level that you may not want to be at right now, there's a pathway for you to reach this level. I was literally just talking to our U14 coach about 15 minutes ago about this. Sometimes it's who you know that gets you in the door, and it's what you know that keeps you here. So it's important that along the way that you're still moving forward and educating yourself, and how we can do that as a club is really important to help growing the game, not only in our local community, but also abroad.
You mentioned access, and this is something we've talked about a lot over the last few months and should have been talking about for the last few years, which is opportunity for coaches of minority, Black coaches, especially in the MLS circles, and women as well, where we don't see enough of that opportunity on the coaching side. Where do you see the faults there, and where can a club or MLS or US soccer fill in?
Yeah, you're spot on with that. And like I said, literally just talking to our fortunes coach about it. It's access, and it's the monetary access that you can limit that burden a little bit to allow coaches to be in the system. Let's be honest, the majority of coaching in this country that affects the majority of kids are coaches that also have full-time jobs. And it's difficult to say, hey, I'm going to stop my full-time job for a week and go to a coaching education because my full-time job pays my bills and feeds my family. So we got to think outside of the box a little bit and how we can reach these communities rather than these communities coming to us. So for us in our community, it's going to these clubs, going to these environments, going to maybe these lower income communities. And like I said, giving a pathway to these coaches and educating them in not only the X's and O's of how to teach soccer, but also how to mentor kids. At the end of the day, that's what we are. And at the end of the day, at the younger ages, you want the kids to enjoy it and have fun. So how do you foster an environment to make sure the kids are enjoying it and have fun? So by the time that they're 13, 14, 15, 16, they're still involved in the game. They still have a love for the game. And hopefully by the time they get to us, they've developed not only as soccer players, but as also as kids and human beings.
Let's look. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I want to shift to the soccer side, though. I love the mentor talk, but we got to get these kids to be good on the field. We're looking at Gio Reyna and Winston McKennie and all this success. One of the ideas I think that's come more recently into U.S. coaching circles is making sure everything has to do with the game and, not just going for runs, but making sure that the ball's involved in all those things. On the field, tactically, what's changed in coaching recently? What do you try and push? Where do we still have to go? Because it feels like for kids that get to Europe, that's that last piece that Americans aren't equal at to a lot of parts of the world.
Sure, and I guess you can break that down just to game insight and how the kids perceive and see the game. For us here at the club, it's what we do is all of revolves around how the player interprets and views the game. So all the activities that we have, there's always some sort of decision that the player has to make, whether it's on the ball or off the ball. Whether it's I have time and space or I'm in time and space, and what are the movements that are involved in that for us to have success in our game model. So to start big, there's got to be an overall plan of how we play. Then distill it down into what are the individual decisions that these 11 players have to make at the same time in coordination for the team to be successful. So then it breaks down into tactics and having defined tactics. I think the biggest thing for me coming from my previous environment into this environment is the old environment is the X's and O's of teaching, but how do you incorporate the X's and O's of teaching into tactics? And it really was apparent when I got here that I was deficient in those areas and had a lot to learn. But I think part of it was the education that I had along the way that didn't necessarily focus on those things. And I think that's kind of where the education system is shifting, is to define and have these coaches, these clubs have a game model in which they look to teach from, and then distill it down to the fine areas within that model that helps develop teams, but also helps to develop the player individually.
And we've seen from Columbus, I know I cover the youth ranks and GA Cup every year, some of the better soccer being played in Columbus. We've also now seen the success into the first team of Sebastian Berhalter and Abubakar Keita and more players, Aiden Morris as well, coming through. What do you make of what's been successful for Columbus? And when you look around the league at big cities like LA and New York and Dallas, how does Columbus compete at the youth level or getting pro players?
Yeah, I would say at the youth level, we've been a club, especially at the older ages. You can say that we've punched above our weight. A smaller market compared to these other markets, the FC Dallases, the NYCFCs, and all these bigger markets. But our older age teams have been able to compete because we look to develop those players that they can adapt within the game and not just necessarily play a system. They can play soccer and they can develop on and make decisions on the field. So you look at a Booba and a Sebastian and Aiden that have obviously played well within our system here in the academy. They've gone off to school and done well within those schools, and then they've come back and are doing well within the first team. And all three of those environments are different. All three of those environments pose an environment where the player has to adapt and to learn. And fortunately for those guys, they've picked it up pretty quickly, and we couldn't be more excited for how they've transitioned from the youth to the pro game in such a short period of time.
You mentioned going to college, though. It's been interesting that Columbus seems to have a developed idea of you go to college for a semester, then we bring you back, maybe you join the pro ranks. You don't have a USL team right now, and there's rumors of reserve leagues as well. What is the key to the bridge from academy to being a successful pro? Is it this college setup that you guys have used, or is there other ideas you've seen from around MLS or the world that you want to implement?
No, absolutely. We've been missing that gap for years, but we've been pleased with the process. We know college was part of the pathway for all of our kids because we didn't have that gap to test them against pros or adults, and their first taste of that was in college. So we know that we're missing that pathway. So getting that second team and testing these kids at younger ages along the way throughout hopefully consecutive years, it gives us a clearer picture of where that player stands within our environment, and then gives us the better opportunity to gauge more consistently whether or not they're ready for that first team jump. Or we also know sending them to the right school and the right environment also brings them back into the pathway. So having successfully navigated those paths of putting those kids in colleges and those kids coming out, we couldn't be happier for the product that's come out. Now knowing that we'll hopefully have a second team within the near future to bridge that gap at an earlier age, to test them at an earlier age. By the time that they graduate out of the academy, we have a more educated approach as to where they are in their game, and then making the right decision for their futures.
Do you have an idea when you look and you coach? I think you started with U12s with Columbus. When you see the 11 and 12-year-old, do you have an idea of who's going to go pro? Is it linear to the point yet where you say, this is our guy, this is the one we're pushing through, and they end up making it through?
If somebody tells you that they've seen an 11-year-old that they know is going to be a pro, I'll sign that person right now. But obviously at the younger ages, you can tell talent. Mm-hmm. How that talent develops it's a crystal ball. You don't know. But what we are confident in is the environment and the education soccer environment that we've created that will allow players to continue to grow along the right pathway. So yes, there are players that you identify that you develop as high potential. So you make sure that you keep eyes on them, making sure they develop. But you've also got those players that are going to be late developers that at 16, 17, and 18 may surpass that player that was dominant at 11, 12, and 13. So it's making sure that you create a pathway, not only for the players that you perceive to be the top players in the environment, but also those players that you know have the potential. And how do you successfully identify those late developers and put them on a pathway to develop throughout the pathway that we have here in the academy?
Okay, I'm going to let you go because you've got players to develop and good things to do. But I want to ask you one more before
Sure.
I let you go. We're all excited about the young players that have come through for U.S. Soccer. You've studied coaching. You've studied youth development around the world for years. How close are we to other countries? Are we catching up? Is this a golden generation? What's your take on the future for this in the U.S.?
I think the players that have gone on to bigger and better things kind of speak for themselves. We are catching up. I would say the world beware, because the systems that we have in place are only becoming more structured and allowing us to develop more players. So it's great for the game domestically. It's great for the game internationally, and it's great to have these players being seen and showcased at the highest level around the world that have come from environments like this, that we can hang our hats on and say what we're doing it's working. We don't have the heritage that these other countries have. We're developing our legacy, but we're moving in the right direction. And to see these kids succeed, it's something to hang our hats on.
Well, we are excited to keep watching it. Columbus has a lot to be proud of so far. And under Kelvin Jones, we expect to see a lot more over the coming years. Academy Director for the Columbus Crew. Kelvin, thanks for taking the time to join us.
No, thank you. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, good stuff. Kelvin Jones.
Awesome.
Enjoyed that. I mean, I think that's one area that we maybe haven't touched as much as we should in this show, which is we always talk about player kids. We always talk about the young players that we like in the league that are getting opportunities at the first level, but we haven't really dug into the academy side too much. And maybe this is the start of something. If you like the interview, if you want more, if you have a suggestion for who we should interview in this space or anywhere else, let us know. 401-206-0MLS. Let's hit the mailbag. The Continental Awards are coming. We will do the official Extra Time Continental Awards show after the end of the regular season because these are regular season awards. And as you know, these are awards that are given to people that are not normally honored. Like, there is no defensive midfielder award in Major League Soccer. There's no award for the outside backs. There's no award for super subs. If you're an American attacking player, you're probably getting stiff. Same thing with Canadians. We want to find ways to honor people that don't get honored by the formal system. So we've asked you, our listeners, the most creative, ridiculous people in the world, to help us. And we put it on Twitter, and we got a lot of new ones. And my favorite was by far the Matt Doyle overhyped random UConn graduate of the year. And who would it be? Do we have a good one this year? Has he really beat like?
So I think
are they still producing players?
Wow. Wow. I don't have one this year that he's been obsessed with, but if somebody out there can remember one, let us know. Tom Boger hit us up, said the MLS mustache of the year.
Can Andre Blake win an award like that? Or
I guess he could, but it wouldn't be overhyped necessarily. I don't think Doyle's really gone hard on him on that one. Tom Boger, the MLS mustache of the year, who he says is exclusively Sasha Kleshton's domain, and he will not hear any other nominees, which I interpreted as Tom Bogert trying to invent an award that he could win. Yeah. Because he clearly has the best mustache in Major League Soccer. Otis Lyons hit us up, the Daniel Vega mistake-prone player of the year, won by Daniel Vega, I would assume.
I don't know. Arriaga has to be pushing on that one.
Oh, yeah. Producing honors in the chat.
You
know what? I've been thinking about this for a while. Should we try to find a way to have, like, you know, like VH1 used to do the show where, like, the little like, thought bubbles would pop up? Mm-hmm. Should we let Producing Anders be a part of the show by letting his chats basically go into the YouTube version, or is that too much?
But only when we talk about Seattle Sounders related things, because he's completely unbiased there. Otherwise, I worry about his bias on other topics.
That's fair. David Applegate, who is a legend in these U.S. soccer parts, says the Sneaky Pete Marino Award, which is a throwback. Go look that one up. The most unlikely player to lead his team in scoring, or the most unlikely player to have 10 goals in a season. I really like that one. Michael Karsner came straight for Pity Martinez's head with the Saudi Underperforming DP Award. The DP who cost a ton of money, has been awful, and who the Saudis will drop a pile of cash for. Came straight for Pity on that one. And then we have some other ones here. We have the best animal encounter, which clearly goes to the murderous owl in Miami this year. I think that one's pretty much a runaway. I don't think any other animal is willing to be nominated in that category for fear of their life. And then Jared in Milwaukee, Dave, hit us up with a ton, like the best ones. I think his computer died.
No. It's still
No, it didn't. He said he was on 15% and he was going to struggle to get through.
He got you.
Close.
All right.
I lost service all of a sudden.
Weird. What did Jared Milwaukee hit us up with?
So Topic's best positional switch of the year, which I think is a really good one. He has some examples. Frankie Amaya to D-Mid, Mihailovic, Busio to the 6, Memo Rodriguez coming in field. Homegrown player of the year, but I actually like his second version, which is the breakthrough homegrown of the year. El Sino Super Sub, which we've talked about. Celebration prop of the year. So using an outside prop.
That's the magic spray. Has to be the magic spray.
And then trade of the year, and he finishes out with sad face Cobra of the year.
Oh, we'll miss you. Yeah, we'll miss you, Cobra. I like some of these. I like the trade of the year. That one doesn't get a lot of love because, like we were talking about signings, it mostly comes back to quote unquote incoming transfers, people would call them, like the big money deals, the Zelarians. The Super Sub is definitely one that we need to do.
Yep.
Just so that Charlie can talk about Anthony Fontana, to be honest with you. And then I really do like the position switch of the year, and I think we just have to give that to Gianluca Busio for going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth depending on the day. Should we just get to the roast? Or do we have any other ones? We have the defensive midfield
more thing, which is, because Charlie's been wanting to complain about it for about 45 minutes, is the defensive midfielder of the year. Hank in Salt Lake City says, how could you guys talk defensive midfielder of the year and not talk about Thiago Santos, who has been the killer at the base of FC Dallas's midfield. And then JD in Orlando says, how do you guys talk about defensive midfielder in MLS and not talk about Orlando City's Seba Mendes and Uri Rosell? I think both of them we did speak about.
Yeah, we did talk
Seba
about
Mendes
that.
has definitely been top 5. I would consider him over Artur and Jose Martinez. Charlie, would you like to send an email or a tweet to extratime at MLSsoccer.com and complain about this?
I think I might.
Please compose something live.
Okay. And we are going to close on this. It is from the literal email was junkemail@gmail.com.
Really?
That's where you go. And it says, extra time. Stop it already. I tune into your podcast to hear MLS talk. I don't care about all these players overseas, especially if they haven't played in the MLS. If you want to start a podcast about European soccer, go ahead and leave this one to MLS players. I'm not a national team fan. I'm an MLS fan. The U.S. was playing another national team and the other had more MLS players on it, I'd be pulling for the other national team.
Wow, first of all, before we continue, what a unicorn. What a like, this is something that people would accuse us of dreaming up and inventing. People would say, you wrote this email to serve your own purposes, like complete with the junkemail@gmail.com and the like, I pull for MLS fans on opposing national teams bit. Like, this is incredible.
It's unheard of.
But it's about to get really good.
Ooh.
Okay.
He says, I remember Claudio Reyna playing for the national team, and he was fine.
He was fine.
I don't care much for his kid because he didn't play here in MLS. And as for his dad, what have you done for me lately? You've destroyed Atlanta United. He's not getting a ton of heat for that, but everything that has happened is on his watch.
Well, you know, this is a good point,
think about
actually.
that for a second.
This is a solid point because
Atlanta United and NYCFC had some battles.
Yeah, and Atlanta United were at the top of the heap, and then once Claudio Reyna took over, he's right.
Yeah.
They've just fallen off. I mean, now it's oh man, now
So it took me a little while to come to the realization that he thinks Carlos Bocanegra and Claudio Reyna are the same person, or he thinks that Claudio Reyna is the one who runs.
I don't know if you're.
I mean, in Gio Reyna wasn't an MLS academy, so technically he wasn't an MLS first team player, but he is
never
basically
on
an
MLS contract.
MLS legacy player. I mean, we're not saying
Yeah.
Let's just clean it up at the end in the way he wanted to, which is so in short. If you want to do a European soccer podcast, of which I can get plenty elsewhere, start a different one. But please focus on the MLS on the MLS podcast.
I also the MLS throughout is also just really incredible. I sort of think this is
Jeff's.
I sort of think this is actually performance art. That this was more someone who like tongue in cheek went in and knew there was some different flags that we would respond to and we would be like act incredulous when we heard.
You think Galena wrote this email?
Possibly.
Decent chance.
Possibly.
Decent chance.
The producer of the call up, for those of you who don't know that firsthand. By the way, go listen to the call up, subscribe to the call up, and the movement I hear is working on some new episodes as well. So go subscribe to Kalen's very early days but amazing podcast. Big thanks to Kelvin Jones for joining us. Thanks to you guys for hanging out. Big thanks to Nala for making her debut.
Yeah.
Now Taquito and General Sao have a little competition. I don't have pets, but I have kids, and someday I'll get the baby in this show as well. Thanks to all you. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. We'll see you on Monday.